Okay, hello all, hello to and welcome to Football Coach 365. I'm very happy today to introduce a new series here in our channel, a new series with interviews where experts will have the opportunity to share their coaching journeys, strategies, training methodologies, and more. It will be a win-win because our guests will have a stage to inspire, share what they know with our audience. And of course, the Football Coach 365 audience will have exclusive access to their expertise. With us today here is Paschalis Xanthos, the U16 head coach of Everton's women's team. We are very happy to have you here, Paschalis, with us. And thank you for accepting our invitation. If you have anything to say to our followers before we start.
Good evening, everyone, from my side as well. Lucas, thank you so much for this invitation and thank you for having me today. It's a big pleasure being with you and supporting this new try. And I wish you all the best and let's have a great conversation.
Great. Paschalis, by reading your bio and your CV in social media, LinkedIn, etc., I have noticed that you, as many of our followers here in the channel, you didn't have the chance to play the game in a professional level. And can you tell us a little bit about your journey from the beginning until now and how you managed to become the head coach in one of the biggest club and most historic club in England? And also your academic background, what you have studied.
Yeah, of course. Unfortunately, I wasn't that fortunate in my career as a football player to make my dreams come true, but definitely that wasn't a barrier to stop me from being a coach or doing what I love, even from a different perspective. I had some professional, not that great, so I was lucky enough playing football in the third tier in Greece, and obviously joining some international level, either with futsal camps or mini football. But I took the decision really young when I was 24, 25 years old to move abroad. So I came in England to work. Obviously, my primary work job, the job title wasn't around football, but I was still playing in the fourth tier here in England. So I have some professional experience even here, not for many years, because I couldn't combine all the workload of working a full-time job and obviously coaching and playing as well. So I decided to quit from the option that didn't provide me as much to help my family. So for that reason, I quit from playing and I focused on my study and the coaching qualifications that they are necessary here in England to open some doors. Luckily enough, my wife back in the day, she did a massive research because I never even thought about it. So from the day that I arrived in England, I was doing my full-time job and I was working as a bartender in a Michelin star restaurant in London. And she said to me one day, look, I did this research and I find out what you need to do to start doing your passion again, a full-time job. Obviously, in a country like England, where the competition is so big, you have to do massive steps and you need to make sure that you educate yourself and you're ready to cope with all the difficulties that you'll face. So I start really slowly doing my UEFA D, which is like the level 1, the introduction in football here in England. And obviously my UEFA C, the level 2. And then military service strikes and I've got my letter. So my postponement period finished and I had to go back in my country to do my obligatory service. So I stopped coaching for 1 year and so. I tried to coach a little bit in Greece, but the level was completely different. Financially, obviously, you cannot support your family by doing this in Greece, not in a professional level as well, working in one of the biggest clubs there. I was driving left, right, and central. trying to collect money and collect hours so I can provide a good amount of a good salary. And then after a couple of months trying to coach back in Greece, I said, listen, if I want to do that, I need to go back in England. And the second try was the most serious one, to be honest, because when I came back for the second time in 2020, I said that I need to find out all the possible ways to make myself a valuable option for wherever looking for a coach. So I applied for in UCFB, in the University Campus of Business and Football. And I started my second bachelor in football coaching and management, which was my biggest decision that I ever made. Being in a foreign country by myself without having a primary job, studying full time, it was tough. Thanks God, with support obviously of my family, I made it through. And there is how it starts with all the football qualifications after that. So I finished with my UFSC. As I told you, I had some remainings when I left for my service, some visits that is mandatory here to do. So your tutors, they have to come in your training and observe how you are behaving with your players, and obviously observe how you are coaching or managing a team during a game. And I finished with that. At the same time, I was doing my football course, and obviously an opportunity arrived in Milton Keynes. So my first professional stop was the MK Dons, working the development side of the team. I moved out from London. I moved in Milton Keynes, and I started a new life there, which is not that far. It's like 45 minutes driving, but it was a new start on top of the new start that I already did a couple of months ago. And with hard work, I convinced my managers that I can be a valuable part of their team, and they gave me the opportunity to coach with the academy. And more specifically, I started volunteering with the under-18s. And thanks to John Beating, who still is the professional development phase coach there, he liked my work. We worked alongside together really well, and I was offering my support to him in a more permanent base. And then being in Milton Keynes, and more specifically in Midlands, where it's like an area with a lot of historical teams, but unfortunately this specific period of time, there are not that many teams in the greatest stage of football in England. I took a decision to move to Liverpool. So I was looking for an area that can provide me more opportunities in football with clubs that they're competing in the better stage than the one that I was already before. Obviously, I want to mention that I would like to thank, and I'm honored that MK Dons gave me the opportunity to do my UFAB with them and offer me an opportunity to fast forward this process by being selected to do the professional game UFAB, because I was already part of an academy. And that makes things much easier for me, because the waiting list for the UFAB is quite big, and there are a lot of experienced coaches that they don't have the opportunity yet to go through this process. And having the UFAB, I start playing around a little bit with other options that they can make me a better coach and expand my vision and expand my knowledge on football. So I was looking a little bit of analysis, and an opportunity came from the university with FIFA. So at the moment, alongside with my head coach role in Everton, I'm working as a tournament performance analyst in FIFA. So I'm one of the 56 analysts that the project of Arsene Wenger has. So we're working close with a team that collecting data and supporting all the analysis that you see in every single competition that FIFA is responsible for. And to be honest with you, that was one of the best steps that I took, because alongside my knowledge, the university knowledge, and obviously the coaching experience, I started gaining some analyst experience as well, which is very, very important today. And yeah, this is how it ends in a few lines. That's going to be my second year with Everton. Obviously, we just finished with the Women's World Cup, and we're waiting for the next experience. I started my A license back in July. So I did already my first block, and I'm keep trying to make myself better and try to follow and catch up with things, because football is the evolution of football is massive and it's happening every second.
That's very great. Thank you, Pascal. Just a few comments on what you said before. Let's start with the license. You did your license in UK or back in Greece, or you did both in both countries?
I did all my licenses in England, apart from the UFIA. So I was lucky enough to be selected in a UFIA course here in Greece. I had a try. I tried already once here in England, but it was my first few months after that I finished with my UFAB, and obviously I couldn't get into that. And since that moment, there wasn't any other A license running here in England, in UK. But to be honest with you, I think that it was a wise choice from the side of things, that I wanna make sure that my knowledge is rounded. So I did my UFAD, UFAC, UFAB with the English FA, and obviously now doing the A license with the UEFA and the Hellenic Federation. Is two completely different approaches. There are common lines and common spots, but every federation has different ways to approach a qualification. So that gives me the opportunity to understand how FIFA is working in the highest level of coaching as well, and at the same time gaining experience in working in the English environment, which is, for my humble opinion, one of the best environments that you can find around the world. So having stimulus from both sides, I think that helps massively a coach to understand the game better.
Okay, but from your experience or from any discussions you have with Greek coaches, do you see any differences how the FA trains their coaches and how the Greek Federation trains them for their licenses?
Difference in terms of the process, to be honest. I think that the courses that taking place in Greece, they are really underestimated from coaches and people around the football world. So what I did realize was that I heard a lot of things about how things running in Greece. I'm really happy with what I faced in there. I'm happy with the tutors. I'm happy with the content. I'm happy with the methodology. I'm happy with the way that they're approaching things. Of course, if you are not prepared for that, if you are not studying, if you are not on top of things, of course you're gonna have gaps, and maybe they're gonna treat you in a different way if you don't produce the result that they want. But don't forget that we're talking about the highest qualification in England, at least. The A license is the highest qualification that you can have as a manager. Obviously, the pro license is the next step, but it's more about managerial roles and how you're dealing with crisis and media. And when we're talking about coaching, A license here in England is like the top level. So why not having the same mentality and the same approach from the Greek Federation? For that reason, I was so happy. So when I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine that we're working together here in Everton, and he said to me when I came back, like, all right, tell me, disappointed how it was? I said, no, I'm really happy. So the people that they are doing the courses, they're well-experienced players, they're well-experienced coaches, they're well-experienced tutors. So the project that they're trying to achieve is massive, and I'm so happy that I've been part of it. So I'm not regretting my decision to go back to Greece. I'm not saying that I could find differences, because obviously I didn't do the A license here in England, but I'm definitely 100% sure that the project and all the materials that they're delivering back in the Hellenic Federation won't be that behind what the FA is serving. So happy with that.
Being a coach, also I think we are near in ages, because I'm coaching an under 15 you are in an under 16 football team. So as a coach, you have your own, for sure, coaching philosophy. How do you shape your approach with the under 16 women's team? And if you were coaching, let's say, a boys team, are you would you be any have any differences in your approach, in your training drills, or the progression you will have through the season?
That's a great question, Lucas, to be honest. And I think that was the reason that I decided to get involved in the women's side of the game, because at the beginning, without having any experience, I thought that it's a completely different world. But now that I'm spending more and more time with the girls' side, I realize that the game is exactly the same and is exactly as you said. The thing is how you're approaching things. So in women's football, there are two massive differences compared to the boys. Difference number one, to be honest with them, girls, women, I don't know, they understand if you're honest with them or not, and they appreciate being honest with them, even when whatever you say hurt them or make them feel extremely happy. But they're demanding, not expecting, from their coach to be honest with them and tell them what the problem is. And second, and very, very important one that I realize, is that emotionally females are more advanced than the men, and that's a reality that we are facing it as men coaches around the world. So you have to understand as a coach that you need to give some space and some room to the women's side of it and let them settle with their emotions. Give it a little bit of break. Don't be direct with them straight away. Make sure that you understand what is going on in the environment, smell the situation, and then step in, intervene, or make sure that you try to organize or change things. So that's the two biggest difference in terms of the approach. So I'm trying to be honest with them. I mean, as a person, it's something that I'm doing it anyway. Boys, girls, for me, was easy to adapt because that's the approach that I'm using. So I prefer my players think that I'm the bad guy just because I'm telling them what they have to do if something is wrong. Or other coaches think that maybe I'm too much giving reward to my players because they're doing the right thing. But that's who I am. And obviously the second one, it was the aspect of the game that I had to understand first, ask for advices, other experienced coaches, and then try to trial and error a little bit my behaviors. And I think that is going well, because if you catch the flow, then it's easy to follow. In terms in the playing side of things, the biggest difference between men and women is the physicality of the game. So naturally, women's body cannot cope in the intensity that the men's body is coping during a game. So for that reason, because they're very intelligent creatures as well, they're adapting themselves, and what they're doing, they're exceptional technically, and also they're exceptional tactically as well. So because the level of physicality won't go naturally that high, they manage to excel in other elements of football. So as I said, technically, you'll find absolutely great players in there. And obviously game understanders as well, as I used to call them. So they know things, they understand things, and they try to be proactive and be in certain positions, certain moments without even thinking about them. It's like how their brain is working, which is fascinating for a coach.
Yes, I also had the opportunity in the last 2 months, last 3 months, through the Total Football Analysis magazine to analyze the national team of Brazil for the last World Cup. And I was amazed by the level of the tactical awareness they had, the players, very good technically. I didn't expect it because, to be honest, I didn't have a chance to watch too many games. So I truly agree with you. But okay, let's stay to this level, the under 16, to ask you some more things. So the under 15 or 16, let's say for here in Cyprus or Greece, maybe in other countries earlier or with a more of delay, is the edge from moving from the grassroots and the kids football and going to the more competitive football, competitive environment. Okay, yes, the development is very important, but also now, and especially for big clubs like Everton, I think the players need to start understand the importance of fighting to win. Your opinion on that, how you manage to marry this to the player development and the competitiveness?
And the first and most important thing is that why personally I think that I'm blessed is that at least in the environment that I'm working, no one is putting pressure on me or the girls to win games. So I'm not afraid losing my job because we don't win. On the other hand, the under 16s, at least in the Everton women's academy structure, from the under 16, they are making a massive gap going to the under 21s, where you can have 4 to 5 years age difference, and also the league that they're competing, they don't have any age restriction. So it's like the boys' side. So when you have a player who is injured and he needs to have some more playing minutes in his tank, so he can go downwards and play with the younger age group, so he can start coping again and finding the physical levels that the first team wants. So it's exactly the same in the women's side. So imagine to have a 15 years old girl competing against a 25 years old girl. So our job as coaches in this specific part of their development is not to make them feel pressure to win the game, but to make them understand that if you don't realize what is going on here, when tomorrow, next year, you're going to be in a completely different environment, in an environment that there won't be a lot of chances for you to exploit. So what I personally try to do is to make them understand what is coming. For that reason, I'm always trying to mention how it's going to be with the 21s, because I'm blessed enough having coaching hours with the under 21 supporting the manager there. So I know the environment that she's trying to create with the under 21s. I know the expectations and the demands of the team. So I try to transfer this down to my squad. So just to make them understand and being aware of what is going to happen. Football is the same everywhere, no matter the age group that you're in, no matter if you are boys or girls, no matter if you're in first team on the under 8s. Football is exactly the same. The point is how much we put the highlight on the players against the highlight we put to ourselves. Obviously, our ego as human beings is, some of us is very big, some others not that big. The point is that to understand that in our job, unfortunately, we like it or not, we're not the protagonist in the game. Because when the referee blows the whistle, your impact in the game is minimum. So what you have to do, if you want to prove to the people outside that you're a good coach, you need to make sure that these players that they're going to have impact in the game, they're ready to cope with any difficulties that they'll face. So that's the way that I'm approaching things. I always try to have a purpose in what I'm doing. Training sessions have purpose. Make sure that you understand why you are doing things. I like to start with why every single time. Because if you ask the why question, players understand better what you want to do. And obviously have a purpose and level and the intensity every single time. So I like to make sure that they're working 110% every day, because that's the standard that they're going to face the day after.
For sure. And just to not be misunderstood, when I say competitiveness, to make the players to compete, to manage the pressure, I don't mean that winning is above everything in these ages. And of course, the academy will not kick any coach outside because he's losing. When I mean to be competitive, it means to fight until the end, to give 100% of yourself, to do the best. That is the meaning for me to be competitive. Because also in a senior level, if you want to compete for the championship, it doesn't mean that at the end you will win it.
Absolutely.
But you need to compete if you are a big club. That is what I say about competitiveness. Okay, and
No,
Pascal. Yes.
I completely understand. And the only reason that I mention about that is because of a lot of conversation that I have. So by holding a position in a very big club in England, the first question that is coming towards you is like, are they pressing you to win? So we need to clear things. In clubs that their target is the development, clubs that their target is to produce players for the first team, no matter what level they are, you need to make sure that winning is not above all, as you said. But that massively is coming through the coaching philosophy as well. So my biggest question all the time to other colleagues that I'm talking with is like, are you a winning coach? Because for me, it's not the most important thing, because I know that if I do certain things a certain way and make my players to understand the game and be competitive in our words, in our language, they'll win. Eventually they win.
Yes.
So if you feed them with the right food, if you give them the right information, if you make sure that their skill set is rounded and is full of tools, they'll win. It's inevitable. You cannot avoid winning as long as your players know what they have to do.
Yes, totally agree with you. And just to ask you if you can give us any insights about the types of training, drills, and exercise you like to use. And I'm asking them because in the last decades, from the emerge of the Spanish football in the world, Guardiola, or the recent decades from Klopp, then younger pressing, positional play, and all of that. We have possession games, positional games, face-off games, more or functional drills. What type of drills you like to use in your training sessions and in a microcycle? If you can, just in brief, explain us how you train throughout the week.
First of all, to start from, as you said, from the microcycle and the mesocycle and the microcycle, how exactly it's working. All these directions are coming from the higher level of the hierarchy in the academy. So the technical director lead give us the theme of the week or the theme of the day, and then working very close with the strength and conditioning coach, we make sure that we are following the right directions, the right distances, and the right intensity, that all the parties are happy. Me personally, as a coach, I'm a big fan of the passing patterns, either unopposed or semi-opposed with passive defense, because I think that players, it's not about only the cognitive side of it, different angles, different receiving positions, the ball speed, is about their technical ability as well in different elements of the game. So I like to create game-related passing patterns for my players, really based specifically the position that they play. So take, for example, 2 units, defenders, goalkeeper, defenders, or the defenders and midfielders, and try to create a picture that they're going to face in the game. I know that for many coaches, a passing pattern is not that realistic, but can give you many benefits in terms of how players understand their body, first of all, understand the environment, and also understand the relationship between the units and how individuals are working in different units. And obviously the progression is coming to tight spaces and ball possession related games. So a lot of touches, tight areas, pressing, high pressure, and obviously trying to decrease the amount of time that the players they have to think. So their decision making should be much quicker. Their awareness should be much quicker, scanning, and obviously make sure that they know what they are and what the objective of the practice is. And then I'm a big fan of phases of play. So try to replicate again and again and again the same picture in a certain theme that we have to follow, based again on the distances that we have to work in. And obviously game always at the end, because no matter what, you need to make sure that in a realistic environment, in a chaotic situation, players, they will implement all the things that you gave them earlier.
I'm very happy that you mentioned some type of drills to have a discussion, because especially the passing patterns, as you say, has a big debate among coaches if they are game realistic, so they can offer a situation that the players they will face in a game, because in a game there are opponents, constant changes of passing angles, etc. But on the other hand, there are coaches that feels that a passing pattern will train the mechanisms and the movements you need to create habits. So for the players, they will not need to think about some movements. So in this situation, the passing pattern is very beneficial.
I understand completely what you say, because I don't think that in football world this is changing. So it's based, again, we're going back to what we said before, the methodology that you have as a coach, and obviously your philosophy. There are coaches that they believe that they're asking the question, as you said, is it realistic? No, it's not 100% realistic, but yes, it is, because as you mentioned earlier, all the mechanisms that the players they have to use, and the way that they have to approach the ball and the teammates and the way to progress, and is realistic, yes. And nowadays that everyone is fancy and excited about ball possession and try to build up from the back, and playing out with the back four, the back three, and all these fancy stuff that more experienced coaches are doing. Everyone is keen to try doing it, but you need to make sure that to understand the way to do it, understand your players, make sure that you know what type of players you have. And if your players need a technical drill and a passing pattern, why not implementing it in your session? Because what the technique is the make sure that you understand the way to achieve a goal, and then the skill practice is coming, which is using this goal that you hit it before to do it against an opponent and try to find out solution in different situations. So how you can go from zero competing against someone if you don't know the technique first. So I'm a big believer that in football there is not right and wrong. It's my way and your way. If your way is more effective in your environment that you are, then happy days, because you are developing your players. But I cannot come to you and say that you are doing wrong, because you know your players, you know your environment, and maybe the way that you're using is what you identified that is the right thing to do for these players.
One of the most detailed explanation to give to the passing pattern debate. Thank you for that, Paschalis. I agree with you. So another one question about, you know, in the modern football has a lot to do with physicality. In our days, players are more strong, fast. They can endure a lot of distances. So the gap between, let's say, in quotation, smaller teams with bigger clubs, it's decreasing every year. And I think the big difference now has to do with the technicality of the players, but also with the tactical awareness, the skill of a player, a top player, to be able to read the game, to give, let's say, Kevin De Bruyne, to give an assist, to be able to see gaps where other players they cannot see. So, in my opinion, tactical awareness is vital for a player's growth. And how you manage to integrate these subjects in your coaching sessions?
First of all, we need to highlight that, at least in our environment, is not for the whole spectrum of it. So for the younger age groups, we're not adding any tactical information in there. So what we try to do, we try to, and that's the parallel that I was talking with the course that I did in Greece.
Just to clarify something, maybe the word was wrong. I meant the ability to read the game, not simply tactics. Just to mention. Yes.
that was ready to say about the course that I'm doing in Greece. So the tutors there, what did they say to us? That there are certain things that you need to possess if you want to be a great player. First of all, you need to be an athlete. That makes sure that you are coping on what you said in the physical element of the game. The second one was the technical ability. You need to be a very good friend with the ball. And then obviously the tactical awareness of where I need to go and what needs to happen. So what we try to do is, I think personally that has to do a lot of things with the cognitive ability of the players out of the pitch as well. For that reason, now all these roles in football analyst and all these video sessions growing so massively, because you can, with pressing pause on a video, you can identify the problem and show it to your player so she can understand where she needs to do, and that give them this tactical boost that they need. And I think that the best way to answer your question about how we're implementing tactical awareness in our practices is just to be realistic in terms of pitch geography, numbers, repetition, and obviously make sure that whatever we do has a purpose, and all these purpose is coming back to the game plan that we have as a team. And I think that because football is changing, everyone is getting more experienced and more educated on that. So football players now in 2023, I think there are more experienced and more well-educated than players in 2022 and 2020 and back in 2010 when I used to play. So every single year that is coming, the boys and the girls that they are coming through the pipeline, they are, because they are more exposed to all of these elements,
Yes.
they are better and they can understand things quicker and they can demand more things from the coaches. So you need to make sure that you are in a decent level to provide them with all the answers that they have and all the questions that probably they will create from all these exposure that we have.
For sure, I agree with you, Paschalis. For me, tactical awareness, or let's say tactical understanding, or even better, to understand the game with the development of the physical element of the game, the huge information we have through the analysis. In our days, players needs more. It's very important for the players to be able, during the game, to understand the spaces. Where are the spaces? Because football is an invasion game. You have to go to the other side to score. You have to go through, above, or around the opponent. And for example, for a young center back, it's very important to be able to understand the pressing from 2, from 1, from 3 forwards, if he needs to drive, to pass, to play a long ball. Yes, the tactical awareness for us in our academy is also, as you say, in your academy, very important in these small details. But of course, the technical needs to be there before everything. So the analysis. You have a specific, a special analysis department in your academy. You have analysts in your academy.
Yeah, obviously you cannot do all these things by yourself, and it's a bless for a coach having the ability to do all the analysis work by himself, as I'm doing, because luckily enough I have exposure in elite environment performance analysis teams as well. But yeah, there is someone that is doing all the dirty job that we are saying as coaches. So carrying all these tripods and the cameras, recording the sessions, and then cutting clips based on what the objectives of the practice is, or what the objective of the game that we're planning to play in a couple of days is, or strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's a vital part from knowledge and education nowadays. And as I mentioned earlier, you can have massive benefits through analysis because you can educate your players outside of the 4 white lines of the pitch, if that makes sense. And
Yes.
with the technology growing that much, it's not necessary to have a crazy expensive equipment and cameras and drones, wherever. You can still record your session with a little GoPro camera or with your phone if you have a tripod there, which doesn't cost that much. So if you're innovative and if you're brave enough, you can find out the way to solve the problems. So if, for example, one day our analyst is with the 21s and I'm not able to use him, I'll do the job by myself. I'll find a way to do the job myself. I climb on the stands, I put my phone there, I record the session, and then I'm going to try to cut clips from there. Simple like that. It's based on how much time you want to sacrifice on players' development and how far away you want to help them to go.
You record every training session. Before answering that, if you can tell us how many times you train during the week?
We train 3 times. We train three times during the week. We train Monday, Thursday, Friday, and then we play Saturday. No, we're not recording every single training session because it's based again on the theme that we have. So if it's a recovery session, for example, we play Sunday and we have a recovery session Monday, we won't record this, or we'll record it for different perspectives. So probably we want to check something different, maybe a behavioral check, maybe to see how the players, they're bonding and they're communicating with each other away from football terms, just to make sure that we have a rounded understanding of who they are, because especially in Everton is massive. Your personality and your character is 2 massive subjects. So we are looking to find the right characters for this club. At least that's the philosophy that we're following. So yeah, most of the times we're following them a pattern with that as well. So what type of session we want to record, what we want to achieve, what's the purpose behind it again. And obviously for our data library, to have everything organized and make sure that whenever we talk about a passing pattern, we can go back to our source, our pool of data, and then pick the right practice and bring it towards the players so they can understand what we're talking about.
Paschalis, a question that has nothing to do on the pitch, but has to do with the management of the players, and especially young players. In a player's life, they will have a lot of setbacks. It's an inevitable situation they will have to face some time. So setbacks, the more simple is not to be a regular one, to starting 11, or even an injury, or a discipline that you have to, let's say, punish a player for a certain behavior or anything else you do in your team. How you support the players during these moments, because it's difficult, and especially for young players, it's even more difficult than the professional ones.
Absolutely, and that's a great question as well. In England, we have a difference in terms of the age groups. So the equivalent of the general exams that we're giving at the age of 18 in Greece, here in England, they have it at the age of 16. So when you finish with this age group at the same summer that you go through the retain or release process from your academy, that's the end one from the season. You're receiving the exams from these, the results of these massive exams as well. So imagine how these players may feel if they have to cope with the anxiety of the results and also the anxiety of their continuosity of their journey in the academy. So that's the biggest barrier that I faced when I first jumped in here, because I never worked before with this age group. And we had meeting with our psychologist as well, try to educate us how to approach players and how to approach different circumstances. I think I'm going back again at the beginning of our conversation to the first point of difference in the women's football, the honesty one that we said. So I'm a big believer of communication. I think that with the right communication, with a quality communication, we can solve a lot of problems. So I try to use all my communication skills and obviously being honest with them all the time. So for the example that you mentioned with players that are not playing that regularly, what I'm doing personally is I'm preparing tasks for the players that they won't start, following the player that is playing the same position like them. So if you're a right back and you're not the first choice right back, you have a certain task to complete during the game to support the player that is playing. So there are answers and questions during the game. So I'm asking the help of all my staff, even my doctor and my strength and conditioning coach. I'm giving them the authority to go and approach players and ask them questions to see if they're following the game. So even if you are not playing the game, actually you're playing it in your head, because you have to answer some questions or certain things, pass completion rates or decision making, the outcomes. So players, they need to be aware. So most of them, because they know that they have to cope with answers, they're focused on the game, and that process helps them sometimes to understand the game even better than the players that are playing it, because they see it in a calm state, no heart pound rate, really low, being focused, follow the task, find out the right solutions. And the biggest piece of advice from my side is just try to be positive, to be honest. You cannot approach this kind of conversation and situation without positiveness. If you are neutral, you struggle. If you're negative, you lose the game, definitely as a coach. So you need to find a positive to give them, even if the situation is the worst one. So for that reason, every single time that players coming to me and asking for feedback, for every negative feedback that I'll give them, I'll try to find two positives, so that make sure that the overall at the end will be positive.
Thank you, Paschalis. Great advice. I think everyone who will hear the interview here, the discussion, will find it a very valuable one. And because you mentioned the exams in England and in your academy, how you manage the school responsibilities, the responsibility that a player has in regards school and classes and the trainings and their life on the pitch.
I think that I'm not an expert, definitely, in terms of school matters, but what I realized so far from these couple of years that I'm working here in England is that the structure that the schools are following is very well connected with all the external activities that the children have, because they do the normal schedule that they have at the school. And I think, if I'm not wrong, they don't have a massive amount of homeworks to do when they go home. So all the children, they have enough time to spend it as they want, doing activities, being out with friends, stay with family, reading, whatever they like to do. So obviously when the exams periods are coming, everything is really strict and really tight, and you hear players and parents saying that, oh, we're revising for this exam, we're studying more hours, we're doing some extra lessons, whatever. But most of the time you won't hear anything complaining about the workload. I think it's very well balanced, and obviously as you going higher in the education hierarchy as well, the intensity is growing, with the college coming in the game and the universities coming in the game, obviously on the under 21s level. And I think that in these age groups that we're working at the moment, and you with the under 15s, the personal life is playing, has a massive impact in their characters and their personality and their abilities as well. Because it's not just the school, it's all the whole circle that they have, the whole bubble that they have with their friends, with their lives away from football. that start because they have more, they have new stimulus that they can be really, really excited in the first years of their lives, that they have slightly more freedom from their families. I think all these things, football, school, teenager life, all this combination, make their work and obviously our work as coaches even harder. For that reason, you need to be positive and ready to make sure that you are giving them the right piece of advice every single time to help them.
So, a final question, Paschalis, more personal for you. What are your dreams, your expectations, your future plans in the regards of coaching?
Thank you for asking these questions, first of all. But unfortunately, I don't have a clear plan, to be honest, to give you. As you know very well, we are working in an industry that everything is so changeable. Everything can move from one side to the other with a clip of a finger. You never know what's going to happen. What I'm going to do is make sure that I educate myself as much as I can. I'm expecting my second children and I'm starting my master's this September. So education is a big part of my life. I'm doing Spanish lessons because with England and Spanish in my skill set, I will communicate more effectively with players and coaches around the world. So I want to educate myself as much as I can. I want to make sure that I'm following the trends and try to make sure that I understand football as it is this specific moment, and being adaptable to all the changes that are coming, being brave to try new things, even if they're not my way. And yeah, education, I think, is the most important one. And again, we're going back to purpose, having a purpose on what we're doing. Obviously, it won't be a lie to tell you that I want to be in the biggest stages of football. But knowing the level of competition that we have out there, even us as coaches, and how limited the amount of good places are. So we need to be realistic and we need to go one step at a time. So make sure that you control all the controllables, things that coming through your hands, and make sure that you're ready in situations that you cannot control them, at least being your best self. And don't forget at the end of the day that you are there to support someone else's work. So that's the only vehicle to give us best result as coaches, to make sure that our players performing the right way, understand the game, and they're improving. It's so hard to excel in an industry where your success is directly related with someone else's success. It's not that I'm studying, I'm educating myself, and I'm the best coach in the world. It doesn't work like this. There are so many things that you have to do the right way to make sure that you are impacting positively the life of someone else to perform, so these can reflect back to you. So
yes, 100%. Coaching is probably one of the few professionals that no matter how you work, how much amount of work you put, you are depending from the success of other people. So Paschalis, because we have reached, I think, the end of our interview. It was a pleasure for me speaking with you. Any final thoughts you want to say?
I would like to thank you as well from my side. I was really glad to receive this invitation from you, and thank you so much for having this great conversation. Last thing from me, as I said earlier, nothing new. Just try to be positive for whoever is listening this conversation. Try to be positive, educate yourself as a coach, and make sure that you are helping and giving back to the players the best that you can, because they deserve it. And it's good to giving hope and helping someone to achieve his or her dreams. That's all.
Thank you very much, Paschalis. Your insights and your idea or your answers were very and truly inspiring. Thank you very much. Thank you
so
for
much.
sharing your expertise from one of the best, if not the best country in the world in educating and playing football, England. Your journey is a remarkable one and inspiring for everyone. So this concludes our interview, and we will have more and more in the next week here in Football Coach 365. Until next time, keep coaching and keep your passion for football alive. Thank you very much, and bye. Bye, Paschalis.
Thank you so much, Lucas. Thank you. Have a great night.